Welcome to the ZTC Edge Importing VMs Best Practices video module. In this module, you'll be introduced to some of the best practices that will help you ensure your VM imports into the ZTC Edge system are successful. The ZTC Edge system provides you with the opportunity to import an Open Virtualization Format, or OVF file, from an existing system, allowing you to transfer a VM from one system to another, or to transfer an image that you created back to the same system to restore or duplicate the original VM. ZTC also allows you to migrate a physical machine or virtual machine to a system without using an OVF file, utilizing the ZTC Edge P2V client for virtual or physical machine migration program. The P2V client for virtual or physical machine migration is covered in the ZTC Edge P2V client for virtual or physical machine migration video. Please note that importing a VM creates a new instance of the VM with unique hardware IDs. And you can import an OVF file from a local computer, a USB device, or a remote file system such as NFS Export or Windows Share, also known as CIFS Share, for example Samba. Please also note that the import of OVA files is currently not supported. In this module, we will look at the following best practices and topics regarding importing VMs into your ZTC environment. Shutting down the VM prior to exporting. Naming issues when importing a VM. Incorrect directory locations. And legacy boot mode. As a best practice, you should properly shut down the VM via the hypervisor shutdown command or software option prior to exporting the VM. Do not power off or unplug power to the VM to bring it down. If the VM is not shut down properly, the import may fail to load with a failed error condition. To ensure the VM is shut down correctly, always shut down the VM from within the operating system. Do not use any power off buttons. If you do power off or unplug the power, you'll simply receive an error message stating failed when attempting to import the VM. There are several naming conventions that must be followed in order to successfully import a VM. You'll receive an error message if there is a space in the file name of the .vmdk file. While it is valid from a VMware point of view to have a space in the file name for a VMDK file, for example, win2k16 space disk1.vmdk, it will fail to import. You must eliminate the space and replace it with a dash. All disk names must have a dash included before the word disk. If you do modify the OVF or VMDK file, you must delete the .mf file if present, as the checksum will fail on the import. This file is optional. Related to the space in the .vmdk file name, if the path to the file has a space, or the directory name has a space, the import will also fail. The solution is to utilize a path or directory that does not have a space in it. If the word -disk is missing from the file name of the VMDK, you'll also receive an error. From a VMware point of view, it is valid to have a VMDK file without a -disk in it. For example, win2k16-1.vmdk. However, the import into ZTC will fail unless -disk appears in the file name. The solution is to update the name of the VMDK file and reference the OVF file to include -disk. For example, win2k16-disk1.vmdk. Please note, if you modify the OVF or VMDK file, you must delete the .mf file if present, as the checksum will fail on import. This file is optional. If an exported VM is placed in the root directory of a share, the import will fail because the root directory contains other files. The solution is to place each VM into its own directory with no other files. If the VM exported files are placed in any directory with other files, the import into ZTC will fail. The solution is to place the exported VM files into a directory with no other files. If the VM exported files are placed in a directory with other exported VM files, the import into ZTC will fail. The solution is to place the exported VM files into a directory with no other files. And finally, Legacy BIOS and UEFI are two firmware interfaces that connect a computer's firmware to its operating system. Please note that currently our guest BIOS emulation does not include UEFI support. The Legacy BIOS firmware interface is the only supported option at this time. This completes the ZTC Edge Importing VMs Best Practices video module. Thank you for viewing this module.